So it was only a few years ago where a manga became somewhat controversial on Twitter for a very stupid reason. And this manga was called Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. Because of its random controversy of the main character being a short woman with big boobs, it actually gained a spike in popularity. And then as the years went on, as this series kinda continued with its romance, interest in it seemed to fizzle out. But let's actually talk about what the relationship in Uzaki became as the series went on, and how it led up to the two characters, yes, eventually having sex. Yes, that is the actual topic of this video, believe it or not. So eventually Uzaki and Sakurai do end up dating. And this was a point of excitement for a lot of the readers following this series because the series kept going. And a lot of us really do want to see a romance where the two couple actually get together and the series keeps going. It follows their relationship. A lot of us get really excited over that type of stuff. And it's being done much more often now in manga. Maybe that's because Japan wants to promote relationships in general. But despite the reason, I love it. I love seeing a relationship continue after the two people actually get together. The issue with Uzaki is that when her and Sakurai get together, Sakurai's character kinda does a 180, where all of a sudden he's more conscious of Uzaki as a woman and as a very appealing woman. And this consciousness kinda ends up going in a kind of tropey area where now Sakurai is uber shy around Uzaki, and it prevents their relationship from progressing as quickly as a normal adult relationship would. Because now all of a sudden when he thinks about Uzaki in a sexual way, he starts to pass out. And this is obviously a crutch on the writer's part. Maybe it's because they were inspired to write a very different kind of romance. Maybe it's because they were nervous about having their relationship progress too quickly, so they had to put some sort of reason why Sakurai and Uzaki weren't progressing their relationship very quickly. So, some random reason, oh, Sakurai is super uber nervous around her, so now he passes out whenever he touches her or whenever he kisses her. So they can't have sex because he just is too shy. As you can imagine, this would make a lot of readers kind of upset just because they're not really getting what they want out of the relationship between Uzaki and Sakurai. I personally didn't hate what the writer gave us in terms of Sakurai passing out or being shy around Uzaki now that he sees her as a woman, but I do agree that it made the relationship go way slower in terms of progression, and I can definitely see people dropping the series just because of how frustrating that is. So obviously the writer must have realized at some point that this was an issue, that readers were going to lose interest if something didn't happen really soon, and that's what led us to the eventual chapter where they do have sex. So it turns out Uzaki has been having some secret fun with Sakurai while he's asleep. And what that basically entails is while he's asleep, he kind of will be able to touch her more because he just does it subconsciously. So she's been cuddling with him and letting him grope her while he's still sleeping, and then eventually she gets extra curious and starts, touching him while he's sleeping. It's exactly what you think. And it's a little bit weird, obviously, a little bit rapey. I'm not really a fan of it, but the scene does continue. We'll talk about the whole chapter so you have full context. So yes, she starts stroking him while he's asleep, and of course he wakes up like, what are you doing? And her response is not exactly the best response. She comes clean to him about how she would indulge herself while he was sleeping, since he wasn't really able to do that stuff when he was awake. And then she reaches the conclusion that she should force herself on him. And yes, it is exactly what it looks like. So, I don't think that this is really an appropriate way. I kind of get what the writer is going for, right? She's really frustrated with the relationship because he has not been moving forward, and in a way, Uzaki is supposed to mirror the audience who has been frustrated that Sakurai isn't able to do these romantic things with her because of his own shyness or his own restraint, trying to not be a pervert. I don't think this was exactly the appropriate way of showcasing that in the story, because like I said, it is a little bit rapey. Of course, he is much stronger than her, so she can't actually force herself on him, and the writer makes that very clear. And then she kind of more so verbally lets out her frustrations on him, that, you know, they're supposed to be a couple and that they have to progress further than this, otherwise it doesn't really feel like they're together. To which he responds back to her that he does want to do these things and that he's actually been holding back mentally, talking about how she means a lot to him and eventually apologizing to her for not having sex with her sooner. He is kinda at fault for not showing her the amount of affection that he should have been showing her. I get the frustrations on Uzaki's part, but I think it's also fair to say that Uzaki should apologize for literally forcing herself on him, and once again, not sure if this is really appropriate for the conclusion to this problem. Like Uzaki, you should be saying, "I'm sorry too, I didn't mean to force this on you," since you literally did try to force it on him. And then we end this chapter by him proposing to her. Bet you didn't see that coming. A chapter that begins with her forcing herself on him, ends with him proposing to her. I don't know what to say. I don't. How should I go about this? Do I have to explain to you why that's a little bit odd? And while this proposal is sweet, it would have been sweeter with better context. And she accepts his proposal, and the relationship does progress forward, just like they both wanted. So you know what that means. Yeah, that's right. They do it. And because Uzaki is originally a webcomic, part of me is willing to believe that there are actually pages of the sex scene, perhaps uncensored somewhere, but they are not here. Instead, there is just kind of an intermission, and then we go back to seeing the aftermath of them having sex, and Uzaki is like kind of upset with him, or upset with her first time, which is also probably not the way I would have gone about it, but I do kind of see what they're going for, I guess. The very basic idea being that Sakurai is too big. She's too small and he's too big, if you know what I mean. And because he was ravishing her so much, he really, like, wore her out. So this leads to him, like, spoiling her for a bit while she recovers from their first time. Dear God, was he really that big? And then once again, Sakurai is apologizing to her for giving her exactly what she wanted. And you know, next time, just be a little bit more gentle with me and we'll be fine. And he's just glad that there will be a next time. So, good for them. I actually don't find getting hurt from sex to be very funny. That sounds kind of traumatic to me. So I can't really see that from a comedic angle, but that's clearly what the writer was going for, is they wanted it to be kind of funny that he's too big for her and she got hurt during their first time. What I do find funny is that afterwards, the doorbell rings. He goes to answer it after having some nice sex with his new girlfriend, and It's her father! I love this expression that they gave him. It's like he knows. It's like he telepathically knows somebody out there fucked my daughter. And he knows that the father telepathically knows. Just a very, very funny way of ending the chapter where they finally have had sex. How Uzaki went about this, I'm not a huge fan of. I always prefer romance to lean in a more wholesome direction. I think sexual assault should be taken a little bit more seriously than it is in a lot of manga. But I do see what the writer was trying to achieve, and I don't think that their intentions were malicious by any means. I think that this was their way of solving a problem that they kind of created. And they are trying to make their audience happy by giving them what they want. And what they wanted was for these two characters to actually get somewhere in their relationship, and it looks like that's what's going to be happening now. They're engaged. They're engaged. And they just had sex, and it was traumatic. Now he has to deal with her father, which is gonna be a whole other thing, I'm sure, in the next update. But let me know what you think about where we are in Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out down below in the comments section. Maybe romance isn't exactly your forte. Maybe that's why you're watching this video, is because you don't want to really read the manga, but you just kind of wanted to know what was going on. But maybe you are interested in a dark fantasy comic done by yours truly. We are currently campaigning for Reaper Book 1, The Cursed Castle. We're nearly halfway to the goal, and it would mean a whole lot to me if you considered checking this out. Similar to manga, I'm gonna do it in the style of having multiple graphic novels that all connect together in what will be an ongoing series. I have a huge love of fantasy, and I always knew that if I was going to do a really long ongoing series, it would absolutely have to be a fantasy one. I'm so excited that I'm finally getting to do this, and I really just hope people will support me as I continue. So if that strikes your interest at all, please check out the campaign page for more details on this. I'll leave a link in the description. Remember guys, like the video if you did enjoy. If you want to hear more anime or manga or comic related stuff from this gal, subscribe, because I'll be talking about a lot of different things on this channel. And of course you can always tune in to the famous Fridays with dannphan. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Program restart.